house of high fashion, a dazzling whirl of elegance, of exotic, extravagant beauties. An adventurous journey into the devastating allure of the most sophisticated women and their intimate secrets.
Suddenly, these lace curtains ignite a drama that will lacerate your emotions.
Greetings, viewers. This is a Rich Vernadeau movie review, and tonight we are reviewing Blood and Black Lace by Mario Bava, the Italian director. It is a classic in its own right. It is one of the formative, influencing films in the giallo genre, which is the Italian thriller slasher type genre. It is the inspiration, prototype, and forefather of the coming slasher flicks which dominated the 80s. It is one of the first body count movies. Mario Bava used a lot of black and a lot of red in this. He uses a lot of stark color. It stars Cameron Mitchell and Eva Bartok. It is highly regarded and was an influential film upon Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino. It was released in Italy in 1964 and then came out in theaters in the United States in 1965. It was released on DVD in the mid-2000s, and in 2015 it came out on Blu-ray. So, anybody out there who hasn't seen Blood and Black Lace, you owe it to yourself to see this classic thriller slasher Mario Bava giallo. A wonderful slasher flick, and enjoy fantastic film. And that is my review
a house of
Blood
high
and Black
fashion,
Lace.
a dazzling whirl of elegance, of exotic, extravagant beauties. An adventurous journey into the devastating allure of the most sophisticated women and their intimate secrets.
Suddenly, these lace curtains ignite a drama that will lacerate your emotions. Blood and Black Lace. Who is this shrouded, sadistic, sordid fiend who maims and murders? Why this bloodthirsty orgy, this holocaust of lives? Blood and Black Lace in bleeding color. A shattering, shivering, shocking experience.
By Rich Vernadeau. I'm reviewing Horror of Dracula, the Hammer classic from 1958. This was the first pairing of Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing as mortal enemies, with Peter Cushing playing Dr. Van Helsing, and of course in the iconic role of Dracula, Christopher Lee. There were a series of films after that, and I've done another review that deals with them. Hammer Films Review, and you should also watch it as well. This was classic in so many ways. It's Terence Fisher. Fabulous score, fabulous music. Even that score was released on LP album during the 60s and was available. This movie made it through all the major theaters and, of course, drive-in theaters. One of the reviews that I have seen talks about the audience having a visceral reaction, a gasping at the death scene, you know, when the sunlight strikes Dracula. Iconic in so many ways and so many levels, wonderful special effects for its time. And it stays true. It goes back to the original Bram Stoker source material and the whole Jonathan Harker diary thing. Fabulously done, well done. Many consider it the best of the Christopher Lee Dracula movies, and it's a movie that if you haven't seen, you owe it to yourself to definitely go see it. Many other Dracula films pale by comparison, and I strongly recommend Horror of Dracula, a Hammer film with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Thank you. This has been based on the novel The Werewolf of Paris by Guy Endore. Curse of the Werewolf is a 1961 Hammer Films production release starring Oliver Reed in the lead role.
A baby who grew into a man possessed by a monster.
Fantastic for its time, great special effects, one of the banner werewolf movies. Clifford Evans, Yvonne Romaine, Catherine Feller also star in this classic Hammer horror film, directed by Terence Fisher, who also did most of the Dracula films, which starred Christopher Lee. Rich Vernadeau here, and today I'm doing a review of Alfred Hitchcock's iconic film, The Birds. First of all, The Birds is based on a story, a novelette, from about a decade earlier by Daphne du Maurier. But Evan Hunter, of the Ed McBain fame, is the one who actually did the screenplay. And there is a book out called Hitchin' Me, in which Evan Hunter talks about his collaboration with Hitchcock and their working together and the mutual respect they had for one another. And it's interesting in its own right. It's called Hitchin' Me by Evan Hunter. Now, Evan Hunter was coming out of fame for his novel The Blackboard Jungle, as well as his 87th Precinct Ed McBain novels. And as this was developed, Hitchcock wanted to do something very artistic. Now, he was coming off of the heels of the huge blockbuster success of Psycho, and he wanted to do something artistic. So The Birds is an attempt by Hitchcock at high art, and he entered it into the Cannes Film Festival, but it did not make the final ballot in terms of the films that competed in the 1963 Cannes Film Festival. Wonderful cast: Rod Taylor, Tippi Hedren, Suzanne Pleshette, and Jessica Tandy. It takes place in the fictional California town of Bodega Bay, and the reason that the birds are attacking is never explained, and Hitchcock did that on purpose. Hitchcock did that deliberately. It features some of the best cinematography and best camera work that Hitchcock ever did. Some of the most interesting camera effects and special effects for the time were incorporated into the making of The Birds. A lot of the bird effects, the flying bird effects attacking people, were done at Walt Disney Studios by animator technician Ub Iwerks. And they used something called a sodium vapor process, or yellow screen. And that's an interesting process for special effects in and of itself. It's considered one of Hitchcock's greatest works. It ranks critically and in popular appeal very high and all over the place. It was honored by the American Film Institute as the 7th greatest thriller. Bravo awarded it the 96th spot on the 100th scariest movie moments. You know, one particular scene out of it where the birds attack the town. So overall, it is a winning Hitchcock combination: suspense, thrills, action, special effects. If you haven't seen The Birds, go see it. It remains one of Alfred Hitchcock's iconic works. And this has been a review of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds by Rich Vernadeau. Thank you very much. The original 1960 Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Immortal classic. Tony Perkins as Norman Bates at the Bates Motel. Janet Leigh as Marion Crane. What can you say? Suspense classic based on Robert Bloch's book. It has stood the test of time. There was a 90s color remake by Gus Van Sant, of course. But the immortal classic will always be the original Psycho by Hitchcock. Master of suspense. The shower scene alone has endless cuts, endless editing. There were a lot of different angles he went into that. There was a young woman who was a substitute for Janet Leigh in part of the filming of the shower scene, because there were certain nude scenes that Janet Leigh was not comfortable with. So Marley, and I'm going to do something on her, Marley Renfro, who does have a book out and she does go to conventions, was the stand-in. Stunt woman, shall we say, who did parts of the shower scene during the filming, parts that Janet Leigh wouldn't do. All of that notwithstanding, for many years after Psycho, Janet Leigh herself was afraid to take a shower and preferred to take a bath instead. And this was true of a number of women, including my mom. When she saw the movie when it first came out, she was afraid to take a shower after that. And a number of different women had that same response. It hit a visceral nerve in audiences across the nation. And a few years later, when it made a comeback through the theaters, through the drive-in theaters, when I was a child, my parents took me, and the shower scene initially scared me so bad as a 4-5-year-old. I had to cover my eyes up during parts of the shower scene. But the movie stays with you. It has become a cult classic. As I grew up, it became one of my favorite films as an adult. So if you haven't seen the original Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, I strongly recommend it. Cannot give it too many superlatives. It ranks up there in the top 10 movies, as far as I'm concerned, of all time. And this has been Rich Vernadeau with a review of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.